Welcome to the podcast, A Drink with Derek. Follow comedian Derek Richards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel and watch all episodes of the podcast. Now grab a drink and join your host, Derek Richards.
Derek Richards here in Las Vegas. Great to have you with us for the podcast. Thanks to Sean Schultz, producer down in Florida, putting together this killer new set. I am so pumped. This is episode number 2 with the brand new bar. This looks great. Super cool. Way too nice for me. Not way too nice for my guest, who's coming up here shortly. Tim Gaither, comedian out of the Midwest, now living in Los Angeles. He'll be with us here. I've got some dates coming up. Going to be at McCurdy's Comedy Theater in Sarasota, Florida through June 18th. Then you can catch me in Brighton, Michigan at Cowgirls on July 20th. Then July 21st and 22nd, I'll be at the Funny Bone in Columbus, Ohio with my good friend Dave Landau. All of my dates are on my website, DerekRichards.com. Also, go online and check out my special, Melting Snowflakes. Open bar comedy. Brand new platform that's out there. It's a subscription-based platform. It is free speech comedy. It's not the squeaky clean comedy platform. My special, Melting Snowflakes, is on there. Also, tons of other killer comedians that the specials are like a half hour long. But you can go on there. They're adding new ones every single week. Openbarcomedy.com is the website. You can also go ahead and find them on social media and see all the reels that they have playing with all the upcoming acts that have specials on the platform. And excited for my buddy Dave Landau. He's got a show coming out on Blaze TV called Normal World. That starts up on June 20th. Dave Landau is going to be on there. Quarter Black Garrett. I will be on there coming up in July, making an appearance. Super excited about that. Go to Blaze TV to subscribe. You can download the app and type in the promo code NORMAL20 to save 20% on your subscription to Blaze TV, which has lots of great content on it. My guest here today, like I said, comedian out of the Midwest, now making his home in Los Angeles. He is a regular at all the big clubs out there. At the Comedy Store, Comedy Magic Club, the Improv, the Laugh Factory. He also tours all over the place. He's got a special that he recorded live in Las Vegas over at the Laugh Factory, which is a killer special. Highly recommend that you check that out. He is here with me now, Tim Gaither, on A Drink with Derek.
Speaking of transgender, I have nothing but empathy for someone who thinks they're stuck in the wrong body. I think that would be a hard way to go. But that being said, they need to leave these kids alone, let them figure it out for themselves. My kid thinks he's a pirate half the time. I'm not going to lop off his leg and poke his damn eye out. 10 years from now, he'll be like, Dad, I probably would have grown out of that shit. Like, I know, boy, but I love you.
Who else has been in jail? Anybody? Yeah, what'd you do, cowboy hat? This ought to be good. Just pick the last time. I got other shit to do.
Last time I went to jail, I was sitting there in Buc-ee's.
Similar to the state you're in now? You were getting a Coke because you're about to pour whiskey in that motherfucker. I combined the word liquor and whiskey and it came out lisky. You're all fucked up on whiskey. You found mouthwash with whiskey and get all fucking liquored up. So I'm sorry, buddy. I'm being a dick. What'd you get charged with? That time? Go through your mental Rolodex in there, buddy. Your arrest record. What was that last charge for? Public intoxication. Well, you better watch out. You're going to be a repeat offender. You ever had a DUI? Yeah. Maybe you have a drinking problem.
I don't really know you to be too much of a crowd work type person, but that guy seemed like a fountain of information.
actually really enjoy doing crowd work. I don't force it, like a lot of comics do. I can't stand that so many comics that aren't good at crowd work have kind of given it a bad rap, like because
Right.
you can't do crowd work unless you have a good act. And you
Hmm.
see a lot of guys just try to force it. And I'm like, if it's not there, don't force it. There's nothing worse than watching bad crowd work or somebody forcing it. And if it's not there, like I said, I have an act to fall back on. But I really enjoy it if it's there, and especially when it's like that. But when you try to go out and I'm just going to do crowd work or whatever, it usually sucks.
No, you're right, man. I agree completely. And we were together at the Laugh Factory in Vegas. So it's been, God, I can't. How long has it been now? It's got to be what? At least was that before the world
4.
ended?
Yeah, it's been at least 4 years.
Man, that's
Time goes.
insane.
I know. Time goes so
Unbelievable,
fast
man.
these days. Yeah,
It
I don't even know
does,
if my
man.
son was
Especially-
born yet. Maybe he was just
He
born.
was. He was. I remember because you were all excited, showing me baby pictures and stuff, and and your kid's adorable, and I hate kids, but your kid's actually cute, and I've seen you post your stuff on social media about him. So I mean, I know you're super proud father, and he was just God, he had to be maybe a year old, I think.
Yeah, you know
If
what? I
that.
think I don't think he had quite turned a year because, I remember right after I worked with you, we had his birthday party and you posted something funny on there. I don't remember what it was now, but so I know it was right before he turned 1. And yeah, I was that guy that was, I was like showing him to strangers in the airport and making them act like they gave a shit. And
That's awesome, man. Good for you, man. You're a proud father. You should go ahead and do that. I think that's fantastic. Good to see you, man. How you been?
I'm doing all right. Speaking of my little boy, he just runs me ragged, dude. Like my knee's kind of jacked up right now, and he likes to run back and forth through the house. And when I'm telling him, like, son, daddy's knee is starting to hurt, so I need to take just a break, he's just like, yeah, no breaks for you. He doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't understand
Kids that
breaks. How old is he?
kids that age have no empathy for sleep or pain or anything unless it's theirs. They're just like, I don't care what your problem is. You're gonna race, bitch.
You could. you started. I want to ask you this here before I go any further. A couple of Vegas opinion questions. There's no right or wrong answer. This is, you've been here in Vegas so many times. I want to ask you these questions here. 3 questions. The best meal that you have had here in Las Vegas.
The last time I was there, every time I ate this salmon they had with like this bacon business. I don't know what it was, but I mean, I have salmon all the time.
With bacon business. Okay.
Bacon business. It was like some kind of sauce they had with bacon in it. And so I ordered it every freaking day and I never got tired of it. And then I never got mercury poisoning or anything. But
Where was
I
this?
don't remember what. I was right downstairs there at
at Robert Irvine's restaurant at the Tropicana?
Yeah, Robert Irvine's. And my buddy always takes me to Smash Burger for lunch, which I really enjoy too. It's nothing, it's not fancy, but I freaking love Smash Burger. So I go there almost every time.
Now, what's the worst hotel here in Vegas, in your opinion?
Gosh, I cannot think of the name of it now, but it's super dirty and it's
Circus.
It's not. It might be Circus. I know I've strolled through there. No, you know what? I'm thinking of a casino in Reno that was Circusy, but I've only worked.
There is a Circus in Reno. That's a but that's not as divey as the one in Las Vegas.
Is it not? Okay. Well, I've only worked at the Tropicana Laugh Factory in Vegas, and I've worked there a lot, but that's the only one I've been to. So I mean, I've been.
If you spend any time wandering around to other properties and venture off the reservation at all, so
not a lot, and I'm very bad about like remembering like where I was and that kind of thing. Like if there was ever a murder investigation and I was the key witness, they would be screwed. I'd be like, I don't remember. Was he black? Was he white? I'd be like, I don't know.
He had eyes and a gun, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what would be, in your opinion, what would be the best place to dump a body here in Las Vegas?
Oh shoot. I don't know, man. That's you should have asked me that question before. I would have thought about it a little more.
All right.
Best place to dump a
can come-
body? You probably
Best
have
place
to
to
take
dump a
them.
body.
We went to that dam one time. What's the dam that's close to there?
Hoover Dam.
Hoover Dam. That'd probably be a good place to dump a body if you needed to.
See, now the problem is now Lake Mead keeps dropping in water level, and they keep finding these steel drums that have bodies in them that I'm sure were dumped from the mob years ago. So I
Really?
can't imagine there's a whole lot of yeah. You got to.
Huh.
I'll take you back out there. Next time you come into town, we'll take you out there and we'll go search for bodies in Lake Mead.
Okay. Or we'll drop one if we have one.
Listen. Open micers got to go somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone does
They're the
bad
one-
crowd work. You kill them, and then we just dump them. It works out perfect.
Yeah. They're the ones, I feel like they're the ones who always comment like on YouTube. You can always tell they've like been on stage like 3 times. So now they think they have like this license to knock people who have actually done it for a while. I mean, they know just enough to be annoying about it. And I feel like those are the ones who make the most comments like on YouTube. So yeah, we should probably.
You mean
dump
just
them.
on videos that you just post in general?
Yeah, you can almost always tell, that they have a little bit of experience, but not enough to really be popping off the way they do.
Right. Yeah, it's funny watching people post things online. It just it cracks me up because you see somebody and then you look on their profile and it's someone who's contributed nothing to anything at all.
Right.
They got a picture of their dog and their tractor, and that's it. And nothing wrong with owning a dog and a tractor and being proud of it. But, it's like, if you're going to at least comment on something, at least contribute something to the medium, or at least contribute something, some kind of art form. Play music, draw a picture, do something. So,
well, I feel like these days with just the way the world is, I feel like people starting out in comedy now they have got a headshot and they've got a website and they've got a ton of social media following, but they don't have any jokes. And I'm like, well, you're going about this all wrong. You're doing it backwards. Nobody cares about all this crap, even though don't get me started on all the people who are doing well that have zero act. They're good at social media. And that's a little frustrating, but it's the world we live in. So I try not to bitch about it too much.
But it's tough because how long have you been doing this? Because you started off according to your bio, in church. When you were how old? Was it like 5 years old or something?
Well, I was 5 the first time that I got a big laugh in church. I went to this Southern Baptist church, and I remember the preacher would call all the kids out to the front, and they would ask us questions. And one of the preachers asked what we thought hell would be like, which is an appropriate question for 5-year-olds. So, but the week before that, I had been at a JCPenney parking lot. It was like the 4th of July, and I didn't have any shoes on, so I made my dad carry me because the parking lot was so hot. And when the preacher asked what we thought hell would be like, I was like, "Preacher, hell will be hotter than the JCPenney parking lot on the 4th of July." And everybody started laughing, and I was like, I like that, So then every week when they would invite us up, I hated going to church, but I enjoyed that part of it because I thought maybe I would get a chance to make the church laugh. And a lot of times I would, and a lot of times, sometimes I obviously wouldn't. But that's where I kind of got my first, I like making people laugh kind of a thing. But I didn't start doing comedy till right after college. So I've been at it I think this is my 25th year, 23rd for a living. So I've been at it a while. So yeah, the business has changed a lot.
Oh, it's changed dramatically. And like you were talking about the people that are big social media people that have somehow created this niche where they've got some TikTok videos going and they start getting some traction on that. And it's just some stupid TikTok video. It doesn't even have anything to do with even comedy. It's just someone looking like a jackass in their kitchen. And for some odd reason, that got traction. The video went viral. And then all of a sudden, this person is now, headlining comedy clubs that you've been headlining for years. And you're like, wait, what? This makes zero sense.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't, when I was starting out, I didn't understand the term bitter comic. And then I, got a little older and I'm like, oh, I get it now.
I've now turned into that guy. You're sober now too. So now, how long has that happened? When did you decide to stop drinking and stop loving Jesus?
You mean start loving Jesus?
Yeah, whatever.
I quit drinking. It's been over 12 years now that since I've drank. Um, and it was I could just feel it becoming a problem. And I'd known a lot of really good comedians who I just had this thought. I was like, I'm going to wake up, be in my mid 40s. My career will have gone nowhere and I'm out of a full blown drinking problem. And I think it was like on a Tuesday, because clubs used to be like Tuesday through Sunday. And I was like pretty hammered. And I remember thinking, like, it's not even like a special occasion. It's not even the weekend, for God's sake. It's just Tuesday and you're half drunk. And I realized it was becoming a problem. And every bad thing that happened to me in my life was alcohol related. So I just stopped and started smoking crack. And ever since then, it's been pretty good for me.
Ah, look at you turning the corner and making a good move in your behalf. Now it's cracking fentanyl. What was there one thing that you did aside from that Tuesday when you woke up and said, you know what? Why am I hammered on a Tuesday? Was there any one incident where you said to yourself or a friend of yours went, Tim, we need to talk?
Well, there were several of those, but mainly there was one thing that happened that was pretty ugly. Um, okay, the week prior to what happened, I had gone to we'd gone to like strip clubs and some bars with a friend of mine. It was his bachelor party, and we like went to a Denny's, and we had just a great night. All these guys from high school, and I was with all these like big ex-football players, and nothing could really bad happen to me. And we were being obnoxious and all that, of course, because we were all hammered, and I was about 30. And they kicked us out of the Denny's. Or no, excuse me. We had a great time. And then the next week, I got drunk at a comedy club on a Sunday, and it was like there were no managers there. It was just me and two other comics, and the two comics was like a manager and the bartender. And so we had like an open bar, and I hadn't drank the whole weekend, and I was going through a breakup, and so I just got hammered, and I was like, let's go to Denny's. I was wanting to like relive the week before, like this great time we had at Denny's. But now, instead of being with all these big ex-football players, I was with these two scrawny comedians, and we get kicked out of Denny's, and I'm standing there waiting for the guy to bring the car around, the other comedian. And I'm pissed off because I'm wasted. And so I hit the Denny's window with the side of my fist, and it felt pretty good, I guess. So I hit it again. And then as I'm walking away, I hit it a third time, and it just shatters. And so my friends are like, come on, what are you doing? And I'm just like, screw them. And I like saunter back to the car, and I get almost to the car, and these 5 dudes come out of Denny's, and they hit me from behind. And I remember almost hitting the bumper with my head. And my last clear thought was, this is going to be bad. and and so then they like drug me back into the Denny's, and I'm wasted, and I wrestled for a long time. So I made them work for it. But by the time they got me back in the Denny's, like I had this giant gash on my knee, which ended up taking 16. I ended up getting 16 stitches in my knee. And I remember waking up in jail, and all I remember was glass breaking. And I was like laying on the thing. My knee looked like a volleyball. It was so big. And I remember yelling at the guards or whatever, no one read me my rights. And I remember one of the guards going, you got the right to remain silent. And I was like, oh, you're funny. We need you down at an open mic night, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like yelling at them, and they finally come in, and I think they were going to kick my ass just to shut me up. And then they saw that my knee looked like a volleyball. And I remember they took me out to the nurse, and she literally put a Band-Aid on my knee that looked like the Elephant Man's head. And I remember looking at her and being like, oh, well, that ought to do it. That's better. And so then the next day when I'm like waiting to get out, I remember all these like hardened jail dudes were like, that was you? Man, you were hilarious last night. And so that whole incident cost me, with lost work and the Denny's window I had to pay for and the lawyer, I bet that cost me about $10,000. And I still drank for a good year after that. But then I was in Florida somewhere, and I woke up after a particularly bad night, and I was like, I just have to stop doing this. And I remember going on stage that night, and I was like, and I had a drink, I don't know, for the last 2 years or something before I've been on stage. And I remember going up, and my set went really well, but like halfway through it, and I was just featuring at the time, like halfway through it, I had this panic attack on stage, and I got through my set, but I remember in my head, in my heart, it was just freaking out. And I got off stage and went straight to the bar. And then that night when I got back to the room, I like circled a date on the calendar. I'm like, okay, I've got 3 weeks off, and this is when I'm going to stop. And that's when I stopped. And it was, it's been over 12 years. I've never once fallen off the wagon as far as alcohol. I have smoked a little pot here and there, but for the most part, I've been completely sober. So
and it's worked out less egregious then. Oh yeah, good for you. That's fantastic. By the way, from what I've heard, jail guards love it when you yell at them.
Yeah.
You're funny. You should go to an open mic. Oh boy, I would literally be sitting in the next cell because I had gotten pulled over one time for drinking and driving, and I ended up spending a night in lockup in Florida, in Pinellas County. And I remember hearing the guys, and it's one of those things where you get pulled over and you go, man, if you'd have pulled me over last week, you'd have really hit the mother load. So yeah, I didn't even have that much. And so, I'd come out, and I came back from a corporate gig, and I still had my suit on. And so, I'm in the jail cell, and I'm sitting there sleeping on that little 1/4-inch foam mat that they give you, and just hearing all these drunken idiots around me just losing their minds. And I'm like, let me ask you this. Did the Denny's when did you punch out happen in Pinellas County, Florida? I wonder if this is how we first met and we didn't even know it.
No, it was on 106th and Metcalf in Overland Park, Kansas. And
you can remember that like a Yankees fan can remember when Babe Ruth called a home run.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been back to that Denny's since, and I remember in my drunken mind thinking it was this huge length from the window to the car that I was supposed to get to. And I've gone back there, and it was such a short space. I'm like, dude, you could have made that so easy if you would have just hustled a little bit.
You used to, you're an athlete. You used to wrestle back in high school and college, correct?
Yeah, I wrestled for 2 years in college, and I was a state champion in high school, and it started when I was 7. So yeah, I wrestled for a long time.
What now is this something that you would continue? You would have your son do now? I mean, what did you get out of that? I mean, in terms of, and I always like to say that because anybody that was in a sport that requires, any sport really requires discipline, but I mean that really requires a lot of focus. Has that helped you at all? Is there something that you've taken away from wrestling that you apply to comedy in terms of focus, dedication, writing? I mean, anything like that?
Yeah. I actually do a wrestling podcast sometimes, and I get to talk to all these high level, just like world and Olympic champions and all that, and become friends with them. It's pretty cool. But to answer your question, yes. The way I feel before I go on stage is very similar to how I felt before I would wrestle. And I do the same things to calm myself down. Like I have these little rituals I go through, and I like take deep breaths, and because I get super nervous to this day before I do comedy. And then when I go up there, it's almost like wrestling as far as like you put on your leg band or shake the guy's hand, it all just goes away, and because there's no time for it anymore. But yeah, it that sport, I had a pretty dysfunctional childhood, and if it wasn't for wrestling, there's a good chance I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. I don't know where I would be, but my life probably wouldn't be very good because we didn't have a lot of consistency, I guess I would say. But we always had wrestling, my brother and I, and we were both pretty good at it. So it gave us a sense of confidence and that kind of thing, that, I never. When I was a kid, I would get nervous before school so bad that I would throw up. And up until high school, I was that way the first week of school or so. And, looking back on that, when I first decided to be a comedian, I remember having this conversation with myself, like, dude, do you remember getting sick before school? How are you going to get up in front of strangers and make them laugh? And when it came to comedy, I just knew I could do it, even though it sounds insane as far as how much anxiety I would get just to go to school, But we also moved around a lot, and that probably had something to do with it. So, but yeah, it saved my life in a lot of ways. So
now, did you take up wrestling yourself, or was that something that somebody in the neighborhood or your brother kind of led you into?
My brother was only less than 2 years older than me, so my dad would have us wrestle around quite a bit, and he wrestled in high school and got us into it, and so he's the one that got us into it. Just took
What's
us
the weirdest thing ever? Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say he just took us to a kids practice, and we were both pretty good right out of the gate, so we just stuck with it.
So what weight did you wrestle at?
140 in high school and 142 and 150 in college.
So. 152 in college? I was 152 when I was in 8th grade. Good God.
I haven't grown much.
I am. Jesus.
I haven't grown much since 8th grade. I'm the same height as I was in 7th grade and roughly the same weight.
Well, that's what you get for smoking in elementary school. See, anybody listen to this or watching this? Here's what happens: you smoke, and it stunts your growth. And Tim is a perfect example of that. What's the weirdest thing you ever had to do to make weight?
Oh God, we used to just, especially back in the 90s, but now they have these rules like you have to weigh in a certain 2 hours before you get on the scale. So you can't cut weight like you used to. But back in the 90s, a couple kids died in Division I, like the year after I quit wrestling.
Damn.
But I would starve myself. I mean, when I was a sophomore in high school, I remember in 5 days, I had 4 bowls of cereal and literally 5 glasses of water. And I would go to wrestling practice every night. And that almost killed me. And my dad wasn't around at that time. So I didn't really have anybody telling me not to do that. So just crap like that and, plastics and all that stuff, working out in boiler rooms and all that shit. Just brutal.
Oh,
I would never I would never let my kid do that. I mean, speaking of why my growth was stunted, that's probably why, more than anything, because I was on the way to being tall and then I just stopped.
I like how you say that like your GPS screwed up on your phone. You're like, I was on my way. I was going to the grocery store. I don't know what happened, and now I'm not there, so I don't know what to tell you. Anybody? Yeah. So, what's the weirdest thing any opponent's ever done when you were wrestling? I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of trash talking. I would imagine. I mean, anybody get a chub? When you're in your leotards on the mat and you're like, wait a minute. Okay, now I'm going to kill you.
One of the funniest things that ever happened to me, I was in probably 7th grade, and there was this kid who I think had been held back a couple of times, and his name was Troy. I don't remember his last name, but he had like this, what crimped hair is? Yes. He had like this long hair, and he had like this, you could tell somebody had put a crimping iron on it. And I saw him before the tournament outside smoking, and he had like tattoos, and I'm in 7th grade, and he had to have been, so I'm like 12 and he had to have been like 14. Anyway, you could tell he was a couple of years older, and he was really ripped. He looked like he'd been in jail or something. And for that first period, he was tougher than hell. And he kept saying there's not a lot of crap talking in matches. There's just not. But in this particular one, I remember him going, "You're fucking dead, buddy," and saying that kind of stuff to me. And then he ran out of gas because he was a smoker at 13 or 14 or whatever. And so then I pinned him. But that was kind of the funniest. I'd never had anybody talk to me like that during a match. But I remember him telling me, "You're effing dead, buddy." And I could smell his smoke breath. And yeah. So
that's just, you never wrestled a 14-year-old from Pelican Bay who did 5 years for a stab at his mom.
Oh man, he had a tattoo on his chest. I think it was like a heart with like a knife in it. I mean, I was just like, how old are you, dude? And he had to have only been 14 because The weight class I think was 14 and under. So, but he looked older. I mean, he had like a half beard going, and yeah. So that's
That
pretty
is
funny.
so damn funny. Make sure you check
Yeah.
out Tim Gaither at JP's in Gilbert, Arizona, June 16th and 17th. Also, Tim Gaither Comedy is his website. And I want to talk about your podcast here. And this is funny because I saw the video clip that you had posted on social media about you being a Truthican. And then all of a sudden, I heard the Truthican podcast come out with you and comedian Mike Baldwin, who is hilarious. Tell me about, what is a Truthican?
You know, I guess I didn't. It's one of those things that I thought I made up, and then I saw it. Like whenever I went to Twitter to like register the Truthican or whatever, I saw that other people had it, or that other people had mentioned that term. But for me, a Truthican. Okay, well, for me, a Truthican is I don't. People think I'm like a big Republican because I bag on a lot of the Democratic stuff going on right now, but I've never aligned with any particular party necessarily. I think there's a lot of corruption in our government personally on both sides,
Yes.
especially on the Democratic side these days. But I call myself a Truthican because I'm like, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a Truthican, and that's what I'm interested in. A lot of things that people would call conspiracies, I just think that people haven't looked into them enough. You know, a lot of people just like to dismiss things as a conspiracy, which was just a coined term by the CIA in like the 50s to make anyone who questioned official narratives sound nuts.
Right.
So now that's kind of what anyone thinks, you know, that's conspiracy. And I'm like, well, have you looked into that conspiracy? Because you might be surprised, you know. And 9/11 did it for me. I mean, I'm not going to get into it obviously too much, but I looked into it, and all I'll say is that the official story of 9/11 has quite a few holes in it. And so that kind of changed. It changed a lot of things. It changed my perspective on a lot of things, that particular event in our history. So now I'm just of the opinion that it's very corrupt, and we need to all come together as one human race, is what I like to say, and realize that we have all the power and kind of just come together, because I feel like we're divided by design in this country by people higher up than the politicians. You know, some people say the deep state is a crock and all that, and I don't believe it is. I think
it's legit.
Yes, I really do believe that. And I think there's a lot of awful things going on, and I don't know how bad it's going to get. But it could be bad. You know, people ask me if I'm going to have another kid, and I'm like, no, for a variety of reasons. One, it's so much work and I'm not getting any younger. But two, I'm worried about having one grow up in this world. And I hope, I tell people all the time that I hope I'm wrong about a lot of things that I believe are occurring in this country. I just don't think I am, you know? So, and that's kind of what Mike and I talk about almost every week. And we've done 42 in a row now, which I'm pretty proud of.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah. So we're going to keep doing it and keep talking about it. And I don't know if it's done my career any favors, to be honest with you, as far as, you know, we have it's a very liberal, if you want to call that, business. And again, I don't like when people pigeonhole me as, oh, you're this guy, you're that guy. I'm like, no, I hate all politicians.
No, know? I read.
Yes.
That doesn't make me a bad person. Just because I read on COVID vaccines, just because I was reading up on what the whole COVID scare was, and questioning the masks and the 6-foot social distancing, and, you know, don't exercise outside. You know, the governor in Michigan wouldn't let you do yard work, you know, or plant gardens. I'm like, and everybody was just, we were all just sheep. Everybody just kind of wandered around and said, oh, this is what we got to do. And I'm like, this is stupid. This whole 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And it's like, you know, 3 years. And it wasn't not that long ago, Biden just, you know, finally said, you know, COVID's done. I'm like, I left that game a long time ago. So
yeah,
I'm with you 100% on your, listen, it doesn't matter. The party of common sense right now seems to lean to the right. And I'm sure people on the left are going to go, you're an idiot. Well, you know what you're talking about. I'm like, no, because whenever you bring up facts, it seems like anybody who is a hard left person just seems to call you a name or just walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you have when you say well, why do you believe that? They can never really tell you. And I'm like, you don't even know why. You just still watch the news, and you shouldn't do that, because we've done enough morning TV to know that those are not journalists. Those are pretty people reading off of teleprompters that someone told them to read. That's all they are. They're mouthpieces for propaganda, is what I believe.
Right.
All media is owned by 10 people or something like that. And they tell you what their bosses tell you. And when you learn how much money those people make, well, why would they lie? Because they make a lot of money, and they might not know they're telling lies. They just know that if they don't say what's on that teleprompter, they lose their job, and they'll find somebody who will say what's on that teleprompter. So they're going to keep saying it. And I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of things. And again, without getting all into 9/11 too much, looking into that changed my perspective on everything. And a lot of people get upset, well, I have a cousin who's in the Marines, and so I don't like what you're saying. And I'm like, those are the people I'm the most pissed off for. Is that the fact that the deep state or these politicians, they send these young kids off to die and get maimed for life for their bullshit to line their pockets. I mean, you look at some of these politicians who are worth millions of dollars now off of government salaries, and you're like, how do you think they got that way? They got that way by screwing the American people, and they've been doing it for a long time, which is why I think
I know, and nobody asks any questions. Somebody goes in on a public servant salary, and they're a senator for 6 years. How do you walk out with $15 million in your bank account?
Right. Yeah, man. I've been very disappointed with a lot of comedians in general. Especially when it comes to telling jokes. They're like, oh, I can't tell that joke anymore. I'm like, you can tell whatever joke you want. And I think crowds are slowly coming back to where they want to hear off jokes or politically incorrect jokes, because I just can't be that way when it comes to comedy. When I was a little kid and I watched Sam Kinison, I was raised Southern Baptist until my parents got divorced, and then we kind of quit going to church. But I remember him talking about he was making jokes about Jesus. And I remember being 11 and thinking, I am not supposed to laugh at this, but I cannot help it because it was just so brutally funny. And that's how my comedy's always been. And for the first 15, 17, 18 years of my career, everyone loved it. And I still do well, or I wouldn't do it. But I've had more bad shows in the last 3 years because I call it the brainwashing of America.
Right.
Than I did the first 15, 18 years of my career. And it's not that I've gotten less funny. It's that people are so sensitive anymore. I have people come up to me going, I wanted to laugh at some of the things you were saying, but I was scared to. And I'm like, do you know how stupid that sounds? You were scared to laugh? What are you scared of? That your neighbor's going to think you're a certain way but I watched this video of this thing on YouTube. It was an hour long about the mass psychosis this country is under. And when this guy was talking about it, I was just floored by how much truth this guy was spitting out. Man, because I see it. I go all over the country and I'm like, it didn't used to be this way. And it is so frustrating to be I used to do this joke about race in my act where if I was having a show and it wasn't going the way I wanted or whatever, I would pull out this chunk about race, and it always killed, no matter how bad the audience had been up to that point. And now if I try that bit, and I still do it sometimes because I'm stubborn, but every time I do it, you would think I was up there trying to lead a Klan rally. And I'm like, people used to understand that I'm making fun of racism with this joke. I'm not pro-racist. I'm making fun of how absurd it is to be racist. And people don't get that anymore. And I just find that to be very sad. And it pisses me off.
They hear their trigger words. And the trigger word automatically throws them into an alley. And that's where he said racist, therefore he's racist. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we're both obvious white supremacists. I mean, look at us.
Yeah. I mean, we got short hair.
So that's who we are. Depending, I think it's when someone says it's got to be harder to be a comedian now than it was before. I always say it's harder to be an audience member because, like you, I'm going to go up and say what I'm going to say. I'm not going to sit there and try to edit myself and go, is this a Republican crowd, a Democrat crowd? Are they going to be sensitive? Are they going to be open? Are they going to be cool and laugh and have a good time? I mean, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say. And I think audience members, the stuff that they would laugh at 5-10 years ago, now all of a sudden they start to laugh and they almost, you hate to do the look to the left, look to the right to make sure that all these people are laughing. It's like, oh, okay, now we're cool. Now we can all laugh. It's like when you make a joke about, Mexican people, and then someone looks at all the white people look at the Mexican people in the crowd, or a joke about, black people, or a joke about white people. And it's, everybody seems to be so afraid of who somebody's looking at. It's like, just take it easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, I've got this line and I go, it's hard to be a comedian these days. Everyone thinks everything is homophobic and racist. A guy told me last week I was homophobic for some jokes I made. Another guy told me I was a racist just because I hate Mexicans. And clearly I don't. And clearly I don't hate Mexicans. And if I did, I would keep my mouth shut because that's what racists do. They're just quietly racist about it. But it's a joke. And 9 times out of 10, people laugh because they know it's a joke.
Right.
But I just did a show this weekend and did that line. And this lady up front's like, watch it, and I'm like, you're at a comedy club, stupid. I don't hate anybody. But, if I did, I wouldn't tell a room full of people. It's just, it's clearly a joke. I set it up as such. Yeah. Yeah. But she's like, you better watch it.
I'm not your HR director. Watch it. You know what? Fuck off, lady. Watch it. Give me that watch it.
Yeah. That kind of stuff drives me crazy.
Yeah, and it's always as I always like to say, as we always talk about in this business, it's the white social justice female, who needs to stand up for everybody else because apparently, no other minorities know how to stand up for themselves. We need to have Cheryl driving in her Lexus RX 350, drinking a $13 Starbucks and her Lululemons to go ahead and stand up for the racial injustice being thrown upon the minorities of the United States.
Yeah, which I can't stand the term when someone says, oh, you can't punch down. I'm like, first of all, that implies that you think you're above someone. And I don't think I'm above anyone. So I'll make fun of everyone. And that's why black audiences especially have always liked me because I don't go out there and act scared of them or kiss their ass or pander to them. And they love that. They love honesty. Black audiences especially, they want you to be honest more than they want you to be funny. They can tell right away when you're pandering to them or when you're like, they hate that shit. And that's why they've always appreciated my comedy. So when some white person gets offended by a joke that I have done thousands of times in front of a sold out black audience, I don't need you getting offended. And if anything, you're the racist because you think they can't handle it. It's just like, it's almost like voter ID. Like, oh, it's racist to say that we need voter ID because I've heard the argument that, well, a lot of black people can't get IDs. And I'm like, do you know how racist it is to say they're not capable as a grown adult to get a freaking ID? That is racist, you dumbass. And they look at you like, I just can't believe. And I'm like, you're the problem and you don't even know it.
I've had some of the best lucid conversations with comedians like yourself where we can actually get together and we're on the same page with our line of thinking. And I've also had the most unhinged, stupid conversations with comedians also. Like you said, the voter ID thing. And I was in a car with a good buddy of mine who's very, very left, and we get along fantastic. But we'll get on the subject of talking about politics just as, as a lark, because he likes to get under my skin and I like to get under his. So we just like to bust each other's balls. But we're talking about the voter ID thing. And I go, you need an ID for everything. Everything. Yeah. You go into a motel. you're going to go ahead and you're going to buy alcohol. You're going to buy cigarettes. You're going to go, you want to get into a bar just to have a
You can't buy
cocktail.
Sudafed.
No, exactly. So, I mean, unless you want to be, live off the grid and, hunt deer and, chew on leaves, I mean, and just be completely tucked away in the hills of Montana, I'm like, who can't get an ID?
Yeah.
Blows me
absolutely.
away. And the fact that you would not want to ask for something to legitimize who somebody is when you're exercising your right to vote, which, listen, I'm a legal citizen. I pay my taxes. I have an ID. Listen, here's my ballot. Here's my ID. Okay, cool. Good. We're good. So
yeah, I ask every time I go to vote in California, I know what they're going to say, but I'm like, do you want to see my ID? And they look at me like, no, why would I want to see your ID? And I'm like, because that makes sense. Why wouldn't you want to see my ID, you dumbass?
Right.
And I don't care how someone feels about, like, this is another thing about people who think that way is I've heard so many people say, like, all Trump supporters are racist. And I don't care how you feel about Donald Trump, but to say that millions of people are all racist because of this, I know some of the nicest, most salt of the earth people on this planet who support Trump, and they are not racist on any level. So to say that millions of people you have never met are this vile thing is every bit as ignorant as being racist. And I don't understand how people don't understand that line of thinking, but they don't. And I'm like, you're being just as stupid as someone who categorizes all minorities as being a certain way. That's the same level of ignorance. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, I can't.
Well, it's the same people, like you said, you're punching down. Well, for you to say I'm punching down denotes that that Mexicans or black people or whatever, or, Chinese people, whatever the joke happened to be, aimed towards. Now you're saying that these people are below me.
Right. Yes.
I never said that.
Yeah. I cannot stand that line of thinking. And when I hear comics say that, I'm just like, ugh, you make me sick with that kind of thinking.
No, it blows me away.
You can't punch down. I'm like, I'll make fun of whoever I want,
Shut the fuck up. It's about this business is about as easy to quantify as anything. If you or I talk and people laugh, we're doing our job. End of story.
Yep.
Outside of, a sport where a guy rushes for 85 yards in a game, he rushes for 85 yards in a game. This is really a pretty, when someone says they go up and they do their sets routinely and no one's laughing. I worked with a girl in Ann Arbor, Michigan years ago, and it was right after Trump won. And she was going up and she was way left. And she's going up and doing all these anti-Trump and anti-Mike Pence jokes and just slamming them. And she came off stage after the first show, and she was, and I'm not going to mention her name. If I mention it, you would probably know who she was. But she came off stage, and I was talking to her after the first show, and I go, hey, I know you headline. I go, why are you here featuring this week? And she goes, well, I wanted to, show the club owner that, I want to come in here and headline. And I go, you're going to need to not piss off your crowd, because even though it's Ann Arbor, which is a college town, that club caters. The people that come there it's not students. There are some students, but not all students. So it's not a college gig. And so she got silence from these people. And she came off stage. I go, I just want to give you a heads up. I go, that Trump carried Michigan. And she looked at me like I had three heads. And I went, keep doing what you're doing. And she just tanked it. Like the next four sets, 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. She just ate it. She just, every time she did a Trump joke that didn't work, she'd auger in and then double down on Pence and then start slamming on something else. And I'm in the back. I go, this is the greatest day ever. I've never seen somebody so convicted to this cause and so thinking that she could just rope everybody in. And everybody was like, yeah, no, we don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, man. It's a very frustrating time we live in. It's just for a lot of reasons, but
No, definitely. It really is. What's the if you weren't doing comedy, what would you be doing?
I my first 4 years of college, I said that I was going to be a teacher and a wrestling coach, and I imagine that's what I probably would have done. But all 4 years of college, every semester that clicked off, I was like, what am I actually going to do? Because I really don't want to coach, and I sure as hell don't really want to teach, but I never knew what else to say. And then this friend of mine, we smoked some pot and listened to a Bill Hicks CD. And I walked home that night, and for the first time in my life, I knew what I wanted to do with it. And I thought to myself, that was the funniest guy I've ever heard, and I've never heard of him. So I could do that for a living, even if I never get famous. And that part's worked out pretty well. I haven't gotten famous. But I did get good at comedy, and within 2 years, I was doing it for a living, and I've never had a day job. And it's instead of getting easier as it's gone on, it's kind of gotten harder because of the state of the world. But I don't know what else I would do, man. At this point in my life, especially, I don't know what I would do. So if I ever quit, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I would just steal copper tubing.
And develop a meth habit. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, remember during COVID when we were forcing us to do Zoom shows, and I remember hearing comedians saying, "Well, you know what? You better embrace this because this is the future." I go, "You know what? If this is the future, I'm going to go lay out in my backyard and just shove a knife right into my wrists and just end it." I go, "This is not going to be how things go in the future." I go, "This is the dumbest time ever in the history of our planet." And the fact that you guys are embracing this and trying to find an alternative method to doing comedy, I'm like, this is the worst. I did 2 Zoom shows. How many did you do during COVID? Do you remember?
I did 0. I had one lined up that
bastard.
Yeah. I had one lined up that was gonna pay me pretty well, so I was gonna do it, but it ended up getting canceled. And I just couldn't even imagine doing it. And I heard the same thing, like, "Oh, this is going to be how it's going to be." And I'm like, well, then I just won't do comedy. I can't imagine sitting at my, like this is fun talking to you, but trying to do comedy. No thanks. I can't even imagine. Yeah. Especially because I do kind of play off the audience quite a bit, just here and there, but you need an audience.
Just the energy from an audience, just having the people right there, just seeing the looks on their faces, just, watching them laugh and seeing what they respond to is, the fact that we were stuck trying to do that on a computer screen was laughable.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, man. But that, and there's a lot of things that sucked about the whole COVID thing. Mainly that it was the most overblown thing in history, but I looked into so many things that maybe I wish I hadn't looked into. There's a guy, and I know we have to get off here pretty soon, but there's a guy named David Icke, Icke. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's he calls himself a conspiracy researcher because he doesn't like theorists, because theorists makes him sound like he's full of shit.
Right.
But he said he's been talking about the deep state and the New World Order and all this stuff for like 30 years. And this was like a month after COVID started. I started listening to this guy on a podcast. And he laid out what was going to happen. He laid it out. He's like, this isn't the first lockdown, He's British. No. They're going to do this, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do this. And then I sat back and watched everything that man said unfold. And I'm like, holy shit. We are in for so much more than the average person is willing to look, and it's not even their fault. It's not even their fault. People have jobs and children and hobbies, and they live for the weekend, and they don't have as much free time as I did, certainly, to look into some of the things. So I don't think that people are stupid necessarily, though there are a lot of stupid people.
There's a lot of stupid people.
Oh yeah, there definitely are. But I think this country needs to come together, and God, stop watching the news if you're still watching it, even though I think legacy media and all that shit is slowly dying. Thank God. But I wish it would just go away completely. I think they are so to blame for so many wrong, so many of the ills of society. I think can be blamed on media. It's
I
just
agree.
absolutely disgusting, the stuff they lie about.
No,
Which
it
is
really
why they
is.
got
I mean, go ahead.
sorry, which is why they got rid of Tucker Carlson, because the guy was saying too much truthful shit. They're like, yeah, we can't have this. We don't care how much money he makes this network. We got to get him out of here. I mean,
When I'd
that's a
heard
whole
some of
nother
the
podcast.
wasn't part of the thing that of the Dominion lawsuit that was against Fox News, wasn't part of the settlement arrangement, was that he would eventually be ousted because of his vocal opinions on the Dominion voting situation. I thought that was something that I had read, but
I haven't heard that in particular, but I don't doubt it by any means. And I mean, there was a lot of, when we went to bed that night, I was like, the night of the election is what I'm referring to. I'm like, this is, we're going to, when we went to bed and it hadn't been decided, I'm like, we're going to wake up and this is going to be completely different. And it was. And I remember all these people saying like, he's so-and-so hasn't won yet, but it's pretty much a done deal. And I'm like, if they haven't called it, and something that is so important, why do they have to make it so damn complicated? You need paper ballots. You need, it's counting. It's just counting. It's not, you don't need a computer. You don't need all this shit. They did it for hundreds of, however long they did it before they started putting things in a computer, and you feed your vote in there and then you never see it again. And I'm like, well, that scares me right there, that I just stick my thing in and it goes and it's gone now. And I'm like, okay, you're telling me that can't be manipulated, that they can't do whatever they want with that. And I think that I think that a lot of people hated Trump so much because, like him or love him or hate him or whatever, I think he came along and was like, I think that the establishment was like, hey man, we've been making a lot of money for a long time screwing the American people, and we don't need you coming along and shining a light on it. So we got to get this jackass out of here. And I understand they don't like his personality. I used to hate that guy. Right. And I still don't like a lot of the things he says, but I'm like, this is so much deeper and darker than simple politics, I think. So
really
that's
is.
a lot.
Well, and the fact that, no, I agree. And I think also too, you go back to even during COVID and all the, again, how can we have some 5-minute story on the COVID-19 vaccine, and then the commercial break is, brought to you by Pfizer, brought to you by Moderna. And I'm like, does nobody see this? Nobody. And again, when you tell people that and they just look at you like, they're like, why did you? No. I'm like, yeah.
and so many people. So many people dropping dead of blood clots and this and that. And I'm like, man, I'm telling you, that's not normal. And we could talk for hours about it, but it's
crazy, man. So we'll end this on a light topic here, only because we've got, just because this is, I was cracking up when I saw the woman that came in to fight in the boxing ring. Did you see this? She was identifying as a man and just got rocked.
Oh, really? No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No.
I know. It was hilarious. I'm like, this is, again, between the Leah Thomas thing, swimming in the women's, whatever. But, and now seeing a woman go into a boxing ring. Do you think you're going to see a woman identifying as a man going into wrestling?
No. A woman identifying as a man? No, not at all.
Okay.
Maybe the other way around. Because they wouldn't do well at all. You talking about a woman who wants to be a man?
Yeah. How we had that woman go into the boxing ring and she just got smoked. So now,
she fought a man.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. No, I don't think you'll ever see that.
And I was nowhere near a betting window when that happened. I feel so stupid.
No, I don't think any women. I think it's not like a sexist thing. It's biology. We're stronger than women. That's all there is to it. It's like girls in wrestling do pretty well against boys until until they hit puberty and strength becomes a factor. And then a pretty average boy can still whoop a girl with really great technique just because he's faster and stronger and everything. And that's not to say that there's not some girls out there who can, but for the most part, the overwhelming majority of that's just not going to happen. No.
Now, how old is your son?
He's 4.5.
He's 4.5. Has he been groomed to embrace his gender, or what are you and the missus doing?
Well, he will, especially if we stay in California, he will never go to public school. Over my dead body, he will go to public school. We're actually going to send him to this thing called Parnassus, which is we're going to have to homeschool him 3 days a week. And it's like a classical education type thing. But the public schools are just batshit crazy. And that, dude, to answer your question, my favorite meme going around, there's this little girl, and you could tell it's like from the 50s, and the mom looks like she's straight off of Wonder Bread or something. And the little girl goes, "Mom, I think I'm a boy." And the mom just says, "Well, you're not." But yeah, man, that's all because of these poor kids are being brainwashed from the time they're little, and there's a lot that goes into that too. But I mean, that stuff's going through the roof. And like I say in my joke, if you genuinely feel like you're stuck in the wrong body, I mean, I got nothing but empathy for you. But the fact that it's a psychological phenomena is what it is, and that kind of thing has happened. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but those kind of things have occurred before in this country, and this is just another example of it, So
it's insanity. It
is, dude.
People need to see you on your podcast, the Truthican podcast. You can find it on rockfin.com. Let's go ahead and pull that up here. Yeah, rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com/Tim Gaither. Find the Truthican podcast with Tim and also comedian Mike Baldwin, who is hilarious. Also, find Tim online. TimGaitherComedy.com is his website. And you can also see him at JP's Comedy Club in Gilbert, Arizona, coming up June 16th and 17th. Good to see you again, my friend. It's been way too long. Hopefully we can connect next time you get out here to Vegas.
Yeah, and the main thing I would like people to do is go to my YouTube, youtube.com/Tim Gaither, and the podcast. My website might become a thing of the past because I just don't even I forget I have it half the damn time. But
right there at the bottom of your glorious picture, there we go. Visit Tim Gaither's YouTube, youtube.com/Tim Gaither. Go ahead and subscribe. There's some killer video shorts on there, and you put a lot of that stuff on your social media too that people can go ahead and follow as well on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. So again, youtube.com/Tim Gaither. See him online. See him when he comes to your town. And make sure you confront him with voter ID questions as soon as he comes off stage.
Yeah, man, I've really enjoyed the podcast. So keep it going, and good luck to you. It's good to see you.
I appreciate you, man. Tim Gaither. Again, find him at youtube.com/Tim Gaither. Also, the Truthican podcast at rockfin.com. And also grab my special Melting Snowflakes. It is available on Open Bar Comedy. Openbarcomedy.com is the website. It is uncensored comedy. It's not the clean, squeaky stuff. I mean, some stuff out there is clean, but comics should be able to say what they want to say, like Tim and I were just talking about. Openbarcomedy.com. Follow them online on social media, Instagram and Facebook. Also on YouTube. They got a lot of killer shorts out there. And June 20th, my buddy Dave Landau, his brand new show called Normal World, coming out on Blaze TV. Make sure you subscribe to Blaze TV, grab all their content, and type in the promo code NORMAL20 and save 20% off everything that is on the Blaze. This is Derek Richards. Can't thank you enough for being here on A Drink with Derek. I will see you in Sarasota through June 18th. And then July 20th, I'll be at Cowgirls in Brighton. July 21st and 22nd with Dave Landau at the Funny Bone in Columbus, Ohio. DerekRichards.com is my website. I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.
Thanks for listening to A Drink with Derek. Find out when Derek is appearing near you by checking out DerekRichards.com. See you next time for A Drink with Derek.